All right, it hasn't snowed in a while, and I'm getting really bored. So I'm going to introduce episode 2 of Controversial Opinions. Everyone talks about avalanches. Everybody talks about trauma, about falling, busting a knee, whatever. Not a lot of people talk about death from exposure and hypothermia, and how that is obviously the one thing that I think is almost in the most control, or most in our hands, as opposed to some of the other things. So this is all easy stuff that you can carry that'll keep you and the homies alive to ski another day. What I carry is divided into 3 different things, okay? Clothing, bivy sacks, and then shelters, okay? Now, one thing that people don't understand is that shelters are not just tents, okay? And I'm just gonna show you some of the other types of shelters that are out there that don't weigh that much, that you can throw in your pack, that could easily save you or your buddy's life, or better yet, prevent calling a search and rescue, and instead just hunkering it out and extricating yourself, if you're able. All right, first we're just gonna go straight into my day pack. Now, I have not touched this since my last tour, so this is not staged. This is literally what I carry basically almost every time that I go out. Now, I will caveat and say that I do modify what type of shelter, bivy, and clothing that I bring depending on the particular objective, temperatures, conditions, all that jazz, okay? So this is what I have on just kind of a standard, done in a day, not doing anything crazy, just going out powder whoring with the homies. All right, so helmet out of the way. First, I always bring a puppy, okay? Most people always bring a puppy, so that's not a big a deal. However, I think what is often overlooked is how big the puppy is, okay? Now, this is a super weight weenie puppy, and that's because we were just going 2 drainages outside of a resort, so A, relatively close. Temperatures were relatively high. Was able to tour in a base layer, for part of the day. And then secondarily, what I have in this pack, okay? So I only brought this kind of dinky puppy because I also have a full sleeping bag, okay? So I always carry a full sleeping bag. Now, this is a thin sleeping bag. I think it's only rated for 30 or 40 degrees. But point being, if you have a sleeping bag that's rated for 40 degrees, and then you have a puppy, and then you have your hard shell that you're wearing against, more close to your body, so you're preventing moisture from getting to these 2 things, you can go way lower than 40 degrees, obviously. So point being, think of everything together as a system and not, oh, this is just 40 degrees, or oh, this is just 40 degrees, okay? Combine all these things and you have some serious warmth at not a lot of weight, okay? Now this thing I got from Enlightened Equipment, pretty cheap, relatively. It's filled with ClimaShield Apex, which is a synthetic that is essentially compressible as down. And if you haven't gathered, I live in the Northwest, so moisture management is much more important to me than the high loft and absolute warmth of down. I just want something durable that can sit in my pack. It doesn't cost me $500. I'm pretty sure I got this for under $200. Yeah. All right. Anyway, what else do I have? Okay, got my hard shell, which obviously I talked about being as part of the system. Okay, if you wear this close to your body, it's going to prevent as much moisture from directly going into your garments, which is then going to decrease in warmth. Okay. I also like bringing a small variety of really light wind shells that are like 5 or 6 ounces. Pound for pound, a wind shell is the warmest thing. Okay, I remember going into I'm gonna butcher the name. I think it was like Pro Mountain Sports, Nelson's place up in Seattle. And I remember talking with him one time, I was looking at super fancy down parkas and all these other things. I was like, oh, that's got the highest warmth to weight ratio on the planet. That's super cool. And then he's like, no. He pulls out a wind shell. This is the highest warmth to weight ratio on the planet. It always will be. Just trapping air and preventing wind from going to the core. This is worth its weight in absolute gold. Okay, I always bring some overmitts. Okay, so I got my standard gloves and I always bring overmitts. Because if you have to hunker it out and your slightly sweaty little thinner gloves that you use for knocking out 10K with your 80 mil underfoot, wannabe Euro type kit, you're not going to last long. And this is going to make your life that much better. Here I got a simple bivy sack. You know, this is just a single Pertex Quantum one. I think it's Pertex Endurance. And it weighs like 10 or 11 ounces. Okay. So I also have just all my general repair stuff in here, which I'm not going to go into in this video. And then all my packs, I'm not going to pull it out, but all of them, you can see right there, have a thick piece of foam. And I specifically get packs that have that. So basically, you have something that if somebody's injured or incapacitated or whatever else is going on, or you just bury them unbury them from an avalanche rather, you can get them directly off the snow. They can sit on some foam. Then you don't have to waste clothing for that. Then you can get them bundled up and you know, start planning instead of worrying that they're immediately going to continue towards hypothermia. Okay, so that's kind of everything I got in this pack. This is my kind of heavier duty pack. So this one I generally bring on bigger missions that are a little more remote. So in this one, this is a Hyperlight Mountain Gear flat tarp. So this thing is like 11 ounces, super light. Multiple people can sleep under this. You can burrito roll yourself into this like a bivy sack. Set it up into a shelter. You do all sorts of things with it. Use it as a sled if you need to. Obviously, it'll get tore up, but I think it'll get the job done most of the time. So, you know, in addition to puffy, sleeping bag, all that, generally, you know, I'll start to upgrade the shelter if we're going a little further out. With the primitive shelter being like the bivy sack that I'll have in my day pack. And then oftentimes I'll also just throw a bivy sack in there too, because a bivy sack inside of a temporary shelter, you know, increases the comfort and survivability even that much more. All right, now this is a weird one that's not common here, that I want to be more popular than it is. I mean, which is easy because it's not popular at all. But this is referred to as a couple different things. They call them wind sacks. In the UK, they call them bothy bags. God, I think there's another name like a Zdarsky tent. Probably butchered that. But essentially what this is a four-sided structure that is supported by you. So when I open this up, this is rated for 4 people. I'm gonna tell you straight up, it'd be 4 people without any of their stuff. Basically, it's 3 people with some minimal stuff in here, or 2 people with all their stuff inside. But how it works is 2 people just take their stuff off, they open this up, flap it out just like you're in middle school going into that big crazy, you know, inflatable, you know, wind trampoline thing. I don't know if any of you remember that. You guys both walk inside, slip your little seated piece underneath your bum, and then sit down on it. And this is kind of like what I was talking about with the wind shell. This is the most warmth for weight that you carry, because it's going to immediately create dead airspace. Now, I don't know how many remember Patagonia's naming convention, but they used to have a parka called the DAS parka, D-A-S, and that stood for dead airspace, because dead airspace is what makes warmth. Okay, so by having an effective wind block that also will shed light precipitation, everything inside is going to immediately be 20 to 25 degrees warmer than it is outside. Okay, so what's really cool about this is how quick and easy it is to deploy, but also the fact that it can be used not in an emergency. So if it's just storming and you and the homies want to have a snack and talk about what you're doing next, you can just cuddle up in there and do that and be 20 degrees warmer, okay? And it literally deploys and gets put back in 30 seconds. I believe, I don't know if I threw this on here, but I think it's also right around 11 ounces. So again, something that could easily save a life, keep somebody more comfortable. Just a very valuable piece of equipment that I don't think a lot of people are aware of. So this is the type of stuff that I rag on weight weenies for not carrying, okay? I mean, classic example, I remember Killian when he was living in Chamonix, was doing some crazy Killian thing, running on ridges, carrying absolutely nothing but, like, you know, a 20 ml water bottle. And he got busted up, and if he had had proper equipment, he easily would have been able to get out and manage the situation himself, but he brought nothing. So he put the burden on search and rescue and responders and had to get helicoptered out. And anecdotally, a lot of the situations I'm aware of, at least locally, not all of them, but many are preventable is not necessarily the correct word, but a lot of the harm or risk could be mitigated, or the level of the emergency could have been reduced if people had been more equipped. So if people had this stuff, they could have lasted longer, which would have allowed more flexibility in the rescue response, which would have put less overall people in danger. Okay? So anyway, there's my rant. Carry a little more, get stronger, be safe. Later, pray for snow.